You got this. We are live.
Hello, everyone. We are live and welcome. We are here together, my friend Kathy and I, and other people might join, to really invite you to say yes to living life beyond breast cancer. So, breast cancer is a disease, obviously, could be a life-threatening disease. And saying yes to life is a decision that you actually make. And that decision invites your entire being, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, to be able to rally the healing forces inside your heart and your body, your mind, and your spirit, and overcoming what is happening in your body. So today we are going to talk a little bit more about what it means to overcome the fear. This disease or this illness or this diagnosis can create a lot of fear. And this fear is not something that actually is easy to overcome. All of us have that mechanism as a survival mechanism. We are actually unable at times to really calm down because it grips us in the guts. And we are definitely shutting down, our mind is shutting down, our body is shutting down, and that's what fear does. So, but before we do this, I'm gonna start sharing my screen because there are some things that I would like to show you about what we're gonna be talking about. So we definitely have 5 empowered steps to help you say yes to life beyond breast cancer. And is this program or the next 5 days in this retreat is really about healing. It is about embracing who you are. It is about following your inner guidance and really living your purpose with passion. And all of this into a supportive community. None of us can do this alone. And I am here to invite you to actually join me and other women in this group to be part of this healing process and this empowering process. So who am I? Who is Chantal? And I am a coach. I have been a coach for a long time. And I'm also a social worker, and I am a certified mind-body psychotherapist and an entrepreneur. I have had 3 businesses so far. And I'm also a big fan of the outdoors. And I love biking, spinning, walking, swimming, all of it together because I really do believe that nature is the healer. And I'm also a spiritual being. So here you are, maybe not live at this moment, but you are watching this. And I'm going to ask you a few questions to see if you qualify, which I believe you do. And the first question is, have you gotten diagnosed with a breast cancer diagnosis? And maybe more than once. So the question is, how many times? The first time is definitely a shock to anyone. And if you get diagnosed more than once, it's kind of a wake-up call. So that's what this next question is. Was this a defining moment for you? And a defining moment is where you actually pause and you really go deeper into who you are. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next 5 days, is go deeper into who we are. And so that we can ignite and reactivate, if it hasn't been yet, the healing power of your being. Your being is connected to more than this physical reality. And then if you had a diagnosis, did it change your intention for living? It is a defining moment because it really calls you to go deeper and maybe change and make different choices. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And are you wanting to make the best of the time you have left? I'm hoping so. And all of us, when I'm saying this, I don't mean to be doom and gloom in this process. I'm really here to say that all of us don't know. If COVID taught us something last year, is that we cannot take anything for granted. Life, the entire world shut down and we had to pause. And often a life-threatening illness is what it does. It makes us pause. So that's what the journey is for today. We're going to start going into maybe going deeper into that pause moment and move forward. So
head over into Chantal's group. Chantal's group is called
Yes to Living Beyond Breast Cancer.
Yes to Living with Breast Cancer. We're going to just close down this live stream right now on Chantal's page, but you're invited to join us over in Chantal's private group. So find the group. It's called Say Yes to Life Beyond Breast Cancer. You can find it by using the little search button on Facebook. And if you head over there, then Chantal's going to be talking about her story over there in her private Facebook group. See you there soon.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so here we go. So my story, I actually in 2014 got diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was my first diagnosis. And in the middle of that, I was actually dealing with a separation and divorce process. Now I carried on and I decided to go back to school and earn an MSW, Master's in Social Work. It was a lot of work, and going back to school when you're older is definitely challenging. And then after I was done, graduated, 3 days after my graduation, the divorce was finalized. And I did find a job, and I was going happy-go-lucky, thinking that my life was finally starting again. And I took the national exam, and 2 weeks after passing the national exam, I started having symptoms that looked like COVID symptoms. And after being tested and an X-ray was done, my doctor called me to tell me that I was not going to be able to make it in terms of this diagnosis. Sorry, I got interrupted for a second there. Kathy came back. So in the middle of COVID and in the middle of this diagnosis, here I am. I remember when my doctor called me, I was sitting in a kitchen table. And of course, at that moment, we are all in isolation. Time freezes. I think if you have been diagnosed with breast cancer, you know that reality, time freezes. You probably remember where you were, even maybe what you were wearing, who was around you, and what was going on. So it was the middle of the afternoon for me. It was a sunny day, sitting at my kitchen table, and my doctor tells me, I have good news, you don't have COVID. And not so good news, the X-ray didn't come out clear, and there's something going on in your chest. And at that moment, because COVID starts, the process of getting tested and the process of getting results is very slow. Everything is shut down. It took 5 weeks for me to get the results. But in that moment in my kitchen, I said, why now and why me? This is my second diagnosis. And I'm definitely feeling powerless, and I'm definitely feeling beaten up by life. I worked so hard between the first and the second diagnosis to rebuild my life by going back to school, earning the degree, getting the license, all of it. And I thought I had arrived, and here I am. I feel like somebody hit me with a 2x4 in the face. So it took a while to get through this. And what made me get through this was really one step at a time. Mindfulness, meditation, and a very strong community is what pulled me through and pulled me forward. My faith is definitely strong. And when I say faith in the healing power of my body. And also other people reinforced that for me and literally said to me, you can do this, Chantal, just one day at a time. So day by day, I did a lot of meditations and calling in the healing power of my body and the universe. And I also connected to people emotionally. I felt supported. And that was really important for my healing process. And the way the universe has it, so like a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke, but I met a man who was a very loving, kind-hearted man who is now still with me. And I decided to take life one day at a time and to rebuild my life. Now, in terms of what I'm doing here today and really launching what I call my purpose into motion, which is to be able to share with other women and support other women in really overcoming and getting through and overcoming. And when I say overcoming, I don't mean that, healing is guaranteed. I mean, overcoming the story that you have in your head about the impossibility that you have to be able to heal. And I do believe that healing is possible. Am I right or am I not? I don't know. We don't know, right? We all do our best. And I really am here to tell you that you have the tools inside of you. If you are able to surround yourself with strong support, your heart is on a journey. You came here as a soul with a purpose. And if you can disengage from what I call the fear factor and really tune in into healing, the healing power of your body, the messages that your body has for you, and really let your soul be your pilot, which is what we're going to be talking about on day 3. And on day 4, how you turn your purpose into and your passion into action is really what we're going to look at. And day 5 is really about creating community. So today, again, we're talking about turning fear into fearlessness. And we are also tomorrow talking about tuning into your body's wisdom for healing. And then on day 3, we're talking about turning your passion and your purpose into action. And on day 4, how do you, on day 5, how do you create community to really support that? So I am just curious here now if, I don't know, Kathy, do you have any thoughts on what I just said? I'm just curious. You're muted. Oops, sorry. You may need to unmute yourself. Hold on. Here we go. Oops, here we are. Not happening. Okay. Let's see. All right, I don't think I can unmute you, so. Okay. Oh, I see. All right, got it. I think bear with us. Here we are, Kathy is here.
Yeah, I'm here, and it's it's a real honor and a privilege to be part of this and part of your saying yes to life.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah.
And, Kathy is here to co-host this event because Kathy has always also said yes to her life. Kathy is a relationship coach, and I have been having the privilege to attend her training program. And I'm putting a plug in for her because she's currently offering a 6-week program that is really awesome. So afterwards, I'll be posting that on my Facebook page as well. She'll be with us tomorrow and again on Tuesday. And so along this journey, we will have other friends joining me. So that's the power of community. You can't do it alone, right? So I thank you for being here with us today. So let's see, we're going to begin. So basically, here we are. Hold on a second, bear with me. So going, and then you get stopped. I think you can relate to this if you have had a diagnosis. And maybe you have chosen to dig deeper, or maybe you're still in the frozen state, which is one of the fear responses. We're going to talk about it today. And then maybe you've discovered that you have the strength, a strength that you didn't think you had. And that is really what I invite you to do if you haven't found it yet. A lot of women that have been diagnosed with breast cancer that I talk to have actually told me that they have discovered that they have a deeper strength, a deeper source of power that they didn't think they had that helps them clear the way. It's like being in the woods or being in the jungle, and all of a sudden you start fraying your way through because you know that you have the power to make it. And then for a lot of women that I talk to, it's also a point in their life where they want to focus on what really matters. I did that after my first diagnosis, but now I'm really on fire about it. And that's really what I want to invite you to do, is get that fire ignited. Now, if you have been not feeling that fire yet, and because I know that it's a journey, it took me a while after my first diagnosis to come back. And I've talked to women, and for some women, it was a 6-month coming back journey, and sometimes even more, because you are going through a healing process. And a healing process not only is the diagnosis, but it's the treatments. And your body is going through some discomfort, pain. It's like there are days where you don't want to be in that body. So if this is where you are now, don't stress about what I'm saying. It's not about me pushing an agenda to you. It's really just about planting a seed, and to let you know that you have inside of you a deeper place of strength and wisdom that you can tap into. But for today, if your reality is that you're dealing with a healing process, a healing crisis that is going through treatments, and feeling like this body you live in is not the place where you want to be, it's okay. Just let yourself listen to me and don't push. It's really not about pushing. It's really about inviting. And so the fear, let's talk about fear. Fear is a good response to have when there's danger. Fear is there to warn you that your life may be threatened. Now, there is in our brain a response. It's an ancient response dated from thousands of years. And it is not involving your thinking brain. Thank God, you don't have to think. In the ancient days, where you can see a lion or a tiger, you didn't have to think, oh, here's a lion, here's a tiger. You had this immediate response. Either you gather your resources and knew you could fight, or you assess the situation and said, I can't fight, I have to run. So you flight. Or you get so scared that you freeze. And you may have seen this also in the wild. Like if you've ever had a cat, they catch a mouse and all of a sudden the mouse looks dead, but they're not. They're just freezing, and then the cat leaves it alone because it's not interesting anymore. And then the mouse runs away. And there's a fourth response that I'm not sure the animals or the ancient people had, that is called the Fawn Response, where you're trying to negotiate and finding a way to appease. And that's more like a human response that has been discovered. So that fear response needs attention. It's a signal, and it's a signal not to be avoided or denied. And the signal is really about paying attention. So it also creates a whole series of reaction in your body. As soon as you're scared, your body generates a bunch of hormones that mobilizes your muscles and decreases blood to your heart and the central organs to be able to really either fight, flight, or freeze. And so it takes courage to go through a process of having a life-threatening diagnosis. It takes courage to be able to overcome that fear, and courage comes from the heart. So today we're going to be talking about that. So we have 3 steps today. We talk about fear, the fear response. We talk about what it takes to disengage that fear response. And we also talk about the healing power of the heart. So here we go. The fear response. We basically look, I know it's kind of a funny character there, but it's either a big thing in front of you. So now, well, how does that relate to, breast cancer? It really does, because when the doctor tells you that you have breast cancer, you know that your life is no longer the same and your life force is in danger. So at that moment, you need to assess. And the immediate reaction is really very simple. Your nervous system, your heart beats faster. You know what that is. You sweat, your hands are getting sweaty. And the threat is not obvious. This is why it's tricky, because if you had a big animal in front of you, you would know that something's in front of you, but breast cancer lives inside of you. So not only do you have this moment where your heart races and your palms are sweating, but your muscles are also mobilizing. So you have more sugar that is released, adrenaline, and your breathing gets quicker. So all of this happens. You may remember when you got the news that you had breast cancer, all of a sudden your whole body went into alert. Your endocrine system is generating a bunch of hormones, like I said before, cortisol, adrenaline, and other hormones, and it also decreases. So your sympathetic nervous system gets into gear, and the parasympathetic, which has to do with relaxing and be able to heal, is not engaged. So there's a hyper alert on the sympathetic nervous system, and there's a decrease response on the parasympathetic. So you don't sleep, your mind is racing, and all these other reactions that you know that fear is happening. You may also experience gastrointestinal issues. You don't digest well, you know, your food, oh, you don't feel like eating. That's often what happens when we're stressed out. Now, these are the hormonal reaction to dangers. So the reason I'm showing this to you is because there is a correlation, and I'm not talking so much about it today, between what has happened in your past and what is happening now. So if you had what is called adverse childhood experiences, as in you had trauma in your childhood, your fear response may be more sensitive. Your trigger may be more sensitive. And you may have had actually a linger effect of that stress that remained in your body. In fact, there's a lot of studies that have demonstrated that people who have had adverse childhood experiences have been more prone to heart diseases and gastrointestinal issues and even cancer. So when I discovered that, I didn't think it was great. I was actually very frustrated. So basically, it's called toxic stress, a long-term effect of a stuck response to danger. If you look on the right side there, the physical reaction immediately is the blood pressure, the stress hormones, like I said, digestive issues that turns into heart disease, anxiety, insomnia, addictions, weight gain, gastrointestinal problems, premature aging, infections, cancer, and heart attacks. So it's not a good news. You know, the bottom line is if you have lingering stress, which is why I'm talking about it today, it's harder to heal. So now I'm not saying that, you know, what you've lived in your past has to continue today, but it is important at this point, if you're dealing with breast cancer, that you actually learn to disengage that stress response. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. 4 responses you might have. And the reason I want to talk to you about this is because you may still be engaged in that response. And the purpose of talking about it today is to help you disengage from it. So if you fight, it's the first column there, you may explode, have a short trigger, may need to control everything. You may be demanding perfection, and you may be wanting to direct and kind of get into fights with your doctors. Now, if you flight, you may get panicky and you worry a lot. Your adrenaline is always rushing. You may be busy. It's called busy alcoholic. Like you keep yourself busy so you don't have to think about it. You may have a mood disorder. You get really depressed. So that's the flight response. If you freeze, you dissociate. You literally want to check out. You are hiding, and I've done that. All of these things that I'm reading, I've done. So maybe you recognize yourself in every one of those. You isolate. You may be becoming a couch potato hermit. You don't want to see anyone. And the 4th one is where you may become codependent with someone and you lose yourself and you try to piggyback with other people. And so all of these responses are normal to have. And I'm pointing them out so that you actually can disengage from them and be able to change that response, because it's all related to stress and your ability to cope. Now, I gave a little bit of information about the ACE study. You can do some research, and you can also go to my website, yes2mylifeacademy.com. I have included a link. And the reason I'm talking about it again is because if you have a stress response that is already established in your body, it's there, and it probably has a bigger trigger and a big grip on you. And when I'm talking about de-stressing, you may be looking at me like I've got 3 heads, because you don't even know what that means. So I'm going to pause here and just see if Kathy has anything to say. Kathy.
Do you want to share your screen so that people have got that link there in front of them? That would be great. So we can actually head over there.
Yeah. Oh, I share my screen. Okay, hold on a second. What did I do? Disable participant. Oops. I think, did I not have that? Oh, I see. Can you see my screen?
I can see your face.
Oh, but you haven't seen my screen.
Not yet.
Okay, thank you for telling me this. So I guess everything I've been talking about is actually not happening. I see. Okay. Can you now see my screen? Okay, so I have, can you see my screen, Kathy? I'm sorry.
No, not yet.
Okay, all right. So I think what it is, so everyone, bear with us.
You can say the link again. I'll post it into the. If you say the link again,
I will post this.
Just...
So you want me to say the link for what?
Your website. You just mentioned, I think, your Yes to Life website, or was it your Yes to Life group?
Yeah. Okay, I see. Hold on a second. Sorry, everybody. Hang in there. If you're watching this, you know what technology is about, right? So we do have, hold on a second. Yeah, there's a little bit of a, okay, so we're going to carry on here if we have a problem, because it seems like you are the host now, Kathy. I'm not sure how I did that, but because of that, I can't seem to be able to share my own screen. It says that you are the host.
Let me let you do that.
So yeah, and definitely.
Now you're the host.
Huh? Did you do that? Did you undo that?
Yeah, I've changed it.
Okay. So sorry about this, everyone. I'm sorry. I'm going along thinking that we actually have. Can you see? Hold on. All right, everybody. Technology. You love it when it works, and still can't share.
I think you have to share it before you go live.
Say that again.
I think you have to share your screen before you go live.
All right. So we're gonna have to carry on and do this without.
Your face.
All right, everybody. So I had this really incredible presentation for you. So tomorrow we'll make sure that it all works out. Okay, so I was asking you about what is your fear response? Is it fight? Is it flight? Is it freeze? Or is it fawn? And so take it for yourself for a minute. This will be posted on the group and you will be able to look at it and review it and just see if you can recognize yourself if in any of those responses. Are you fighting? Are you flighting? Are you freezing? Or are you fawning, which means that you're trying to negotiate? Now, how do you deal with this? And what do you do when that happens, right? You recognize your response. So I'm basically saying to you, you got diagnosed, you're dealing with it. There's a reality you live days in and days out about treatments, transformations that your body's going through. And we move in and out of fear. You know, there's moments where we feel better and there's moments where we don't. We feel really gripped by fear. And what I'm inviting you to do right now is engaging in a process that is really about creating safety. And it's about being able to call on your resources physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually to calm down that response. But first you have to recognize what your response is. Like for instance, somebody who is very busy, and I'm going to raise my hand on this one, can look like they've got this. There's no problem. People are incredibly amazed by you because you just keep going. They don't know what's going on. You barely probably pay attention to it unless you have the treatments, which makes you feel bad, but then you can retreat, go into freeze response and isolate yourself and not talk to people. But these two reactions, or any of the reactions, if you can recognize them, the first step is to basically acknowledge where you are and become mindful of that reality. Now, making a decision about changing that is important. Decisions have power. And that means you decide that you're going to slow down and transform that fear experience into something else. And when I say decisions have power, I mean your mind creates the reality that you live. I mean, which one comes first, right? Fear response is not in the mind, it's in the body. And yet you bring your mind to it, and then you realize you can do something, or you make the decision, you can do something about it. And why is it important? Because when you're de-stressing, there's healing. The healing response increases. So you change your physiology to affect your psychology. And you basically, at that point, make decisions on how you're going to do this. This is the first step. And then the next step is to bring a lot of compassion and understanding and kindness to your process. No one's perfect. We're all learning, you know. This is uncharted territory when you have breast cancer, unless you've gone through it twice. And maybe like me, twice. I still don't know. I'm still looking, you know, every day is a new day. So basically, now we're going to talk about you making a decision to change that response and then what you can do about it. Take a pause here with me. Let's all take a deep breath. Because it is the fear response changing as soon as you deepen your breath. Basically, every time you slow down your breath, and I'm going to invite you to do it with me on a count of 4, you inhale, you pause for maybe 1 or 2 counts, and you exhale. You're starting to shift from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you're sitting or standing, I'm going to invite you to actually sit up straight if you can, and just really root down your sits bones and take a deep breath in. Lift your shoulders up and relax them back, and relax your jaw. Move your neck a little bit around if you're feeling tight, and just take your hands and just press on your jaw muscles. And just notice what happens when you do that. You're literally just inviting your body through touch to release. I know we may all look funny over here doing this. So, and then now relax your shoulders. Take a deep breath, open your mouth wide, and relax and exhale. Soften your muscles, the muscles of your face. Imagine that there's just something really soft in front of your face so that your skin softens. And then imagine that soft, like a soft brush, goes around your head, your neck, your shoulders, in front of your chest and the back. In front of your solar plexus, down towards your legs and your feet, and ground your feet. Feel your feet on the ground. And just as you let your skin soften, feel your sits bones and your belly, because deep belly breath is what we're looking for. So lean back also on your seat. Just let yourself lean back and take a deep breath. Exhale. For now, no need to count. Just feel, connect to your breath. Become aware of your breath. Now, if you can, take a breath through your nose. Invite your breath through your nose. Inhale and exhale. Now I'm going to count. So you want to take a breath on a count of 4. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And do this again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it and exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And notice, I'm noticing as I'm talking to you that I'm slowing down my pace. And I've also noticed that I'm sitting on my chair and I'm able to relax and lean back. So if you were with me in the room, I would ask you right now, what changes are you noticing? Only through this, we did 2 rounds of mindful breathing. What are you noticing? And I'm going to check in to see if Kathy wants to share something. Can you unmute yourself, or do I have to give you permission? There you go.
I'm feeling beautifully relaxed. It's amazing how just 2 rounds of mindful breathing can just slow you down. Amazing.
Right.
So if you're watching, I encourage you to do the exercise with us because it's great. And this is a new one for me, the jaw.
To massage.
Mm,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Often, thank you, Kathy, for saying this, because often we don't realize how much tension we're holding in our face. We're holding it tight, you know, it's like a mask that we're wearing. And I highly encourage you to have this every time you go and have an appointment with a doctor, or before you enter a procedure. It's very hard to do. I remember the day where I got my surgery. I was really stressed out. It was hard to do that deep breathing, but I practice. And so what it does is also helps you be present in the here and now. Because fear will do something to your mind, right? If you face danger in the here and now, you have a tiger, which will not happen to most of us, in front of you, you would mobilize. You can think about what you would do if you face a tiger, but in reality, you won't know until you actually see that tiger. And it's the same thing with our fear response in terms of dealing with our recovery process. You can't think your way through this healing process. Becoming present to your breath helps you become present to your healing process moment by moment. And it also disengages what's called catastrophic thinking, because it's so easy when you're diagnosed with a life-threatening illness to go into stories. Call it the mind-making machine. We make meaning out of things that are not in front of us. And you may have experienced that catastrophic thinking where you just go into a story of the worst things that will happen. It's also a reaction that is normal. It's part of the survival reaction to fear the worst and not think the best. And there's a lot of research done on this mindfulness process. And Dr. Rick Hanson is one that wrote a book called The Buddha's Brain. And that book is really about teaching people how to disengage again through mindfulness, the hook that fear has on the mind, because it takes 5 good experiences to overcome a bad one. Now, if you think about breast cancer, surgery, treatments, it's not just in the mind, it's in the body. It's rooted in the body. So deep breath every time you enter an experience, every time you meet with a doctor, every time you walk out, before you start a treatment, as you go through your days, every time you notice your mind going into into catastrophic thinking, it's the time to practice that deep breath. So it's one very simple tool that, hold on a second, I just have to go back to this slide here. It's one simple tool that you can use all day, every day. And so in the morning, I'm inviting you to do this, practicing mindful breathing. You don't have to call it meditation. I do this every day. I get up and I make some hot beverage and I sit on my meditation chair and I just practice mindful breathing. I just notice my breath and I count 10 breaths and then I count again, 10 more breaths. And what this does is I notice my mind and I notice how much activity there is in there, how many stories I have, how many meaning-making stories I have, and how none of it is real. I'm sitting in my room, you know, it's early in the morning. Nothing is happening except me sitting in that room, and I'm already all involved into this making story machine thing. So breathing is really the first step to help disengage a stress response. Now, in the wild, there is a lot of balancing act. So if you're an animal and your life got threatened, the next immediate response to create homeostasis, which is balance, regaining balance, is that your body will do one or two things. So when the heart slows down, eventually comes back to normal, there's a lot of energy in your muscles. A lot of hormones have been released. If you run, as in if you take action, you mobilize that energy and you burn it out. So if you are in the wild and you got threatened by an animal, then you run, then all the hormones that are released in your bloodstreams are being released. If you fight, the same thing happens. You use all this energy, you burn it out, and it's released, and you come back to balance. If you freeze and eventually danger passes and you're still alive, you shake. Animals will shake to release that energy. Now, the worst response you can have is actually the freeze response, because it stays there. All these hormones are stuck in your body, and that's what makes stress be toxic. Now, if you're you're facing a doctor, you're facing medical profession, you're facing your treatments, you're facing your life, decisions have to be made that are financial, emotional, relational. You may not know how to mobilize yourself. You may not know how to release that stress. And moving is the most important component. And what I mean by movement is breath is first and then movement. Moving means walking. Moving means doing yoga, slow movement with breath. It also means anything that is fun to you. If dancing is your thing, dance, you know. If sitting outside in the summer, right now it's winter, but in the summer, gardening grounds you, earth is very healing. If swimming, anything that feels good to you is actually what needs to happen. I often say to people, walking is probably the simplest thing to do because you can slow down your pace. I remember the day after my surgery, I was outside taking a walk, so slow. But I needed to do this for myself. I needed to feel my legs, even though I was in pain and I was walking with all kinds of stuff attached to me. I still went outside and I walked for 10, 15 minutes because I needed to feel the ground beneath my feet. I needed my mind to come back to the current reality. I needed to feel my body able to come whole again. And that's what moving does to you. There are other benefits attached to moving. But before that, I'm just wondering, Kathy, if you have had an experience of that. What's your experience of movement? You want to unmute yourself? Yeah.
Well, it's a really good one, isn't it? Because a lot of the time we spend our lives in our heads. Everything about our working lives is, for most people, is set up to be at a screen, at a desk. We're living in our heads. Our bodies are here to take us to meetings. And in fact, now, because we're in Zoom meetings, our bodies aren't even needed. So remembering to do that, just remembering to release is powerful. I didn't know what you said about the freeze response being the most toxic. So that's new for me. And that's really interesting and enlightening. It makes a lot of sense of what we often do, because I think we're probably taught that the anger response, the fight response is bad. The runaway response, a bit less socially acceptable. Somehow the freeze response seems the most socially acceptable. And so we do it, but not knowing that what we're actually doing is storing up toxins for ourselves. So that's powerful stuff. Thank you. Really good. Oh, and I'm not the co-host right now, so you might want to make me co-host again.
Okay. I don't think I can. Okay, I will do that. Let's see. We're still dealing with this. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So we're still learning the technology here. So thank you, Kathy. I appreciate you saying this, because often what happens when we're stuck in the room and we talk to for me, it was talking to the oncologist, which I did not have a good experience with the first time. I had to switch oncologists because I was fighting with my oncologist. That was my response, because I felt like I was being imposed upon something that I wanted to actually have a discussion about, and it didn't seem that there was a lot of room for discussion. So I was fighting with him, but I was sitting in a room, not able to move. Flighting, not like pretending that it doesn't exist, is the freeze response. Or the flight part for me was to delay some of my procedures. I just kind of delayed it for a while before I actually got engaged into doing the procedures. So I personally did that movement thing every day because it was important for me. Now, I want to give you an example of a client that I work with because it works, you know. Nikki was a woman that came to me, and I'm going to pause here and just talk about her for a little bit, and just to show you how powerful small changes can be, and not just changing physiology, but also affecting overall health. Nikki came to me. She actually had a diagnosis of precancer. She had inflammation in her body. She was diagnosed with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. She couldn't sleep. She was very restless. Emotionally, she felt overwhelmed, and her brain was scattered. She was going in all kinds of directions, trying to do too many things, and none of them were working because she wasn't able to focus enough. So when she came to me, her goal, and she also had gained weight. So her goal was to lose weight. So we started with this first thing, losing weight. You may not have that issue if you have breast cancer. I wouldn't be surprised that you actually have lost weight already. But for her, because she was precancerous, she wanted to deal with it before it manifested. We worked on life balance overall at first. And I had to convince her that the weight loss would happen over time. So we talked about balancing her life and focusing on what mattered the most, creating a schedule that worked for her. She was working too much. Focusing, making what was important in her life a priority. So she had a daughter, she was a single mom, she had a business. She was also very creative. She had a creative project that she was trying to birth. But she also had a hard time saying no to people. So she was always busy saying yes, 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 yes. And it's one of the things that I have heard and noticed from women that have had breast cancer. It's a common trait to have a hard time saying no and have boundaries and trying to please everyone and having a hard time to prioritize yourself because we always feel like we're hurting someone or we have to give more and it's never enough. So I just want to put a plug for that because we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But anyways, after working with me for 6 months, Nikki lost 20 pounds. But we weren't really focusing on food, but we did work and talk about food, balancing, having a healthy diet. That meant, you know, eating things that she enjoyed. I don't like the word diet. I'm talking more about a life balance through nurturing and nourishment. So having, you know, more vegetables, more fruit, balancing what felt good and making the time to eat. She also made time to meditate every day, do a little bit of mindfulness, and begin walking. Walking is the simplest thing you can do. All she could do, I said to her, let's have a very simple goal, 30 minutes, 3 times a week. And that turned into 30 minutes every day. And eventually her husband went along, not her husband because she's a single mom, but eventually her partner went along with her. And it became an hour because it became time for them to have private, not just private, but what do you call this? Nurturing time for them to be together out of the hubbub of every day and having to deal with their work and their job and everything else. So at the end of 6 months, her inflammation had decreased. Her joints weren't hurting so much. She was able to eat, not eat, but sleep 8 hours a night, and also able to manage by focusing and prioritizing her life in a more balanced way. So that's what happens when, you know, we work with people. Like I said, when we started, we all need people. It takes a village, but especially when we go through a crisis, how do we know what a priority is? How do we know what to focus on? Especially if you feel like your life is in danger. It's very challenging. So I just want to talk a little bit more about this. And then I would like to continue a little bit more talking about the virtue of movement. And let's see here. Hold on a second. I'm still dealing with this wonderful presentation that I have. And when I talk about movement now, I want to talk about nature and finding time to put your feet on the ground. Nature is the healer. There is outside energy coming from the ground that is really balancing. what's called negative ions versus positive ions. If you live in a city, if your feet are always on the concrete, and if you never touch the ground, the ions in your body are more positive than negative. And believe it or not, negative ions are what helps heal. So if you notice after a rain, a rainstorm or a snowstorm, you go outside and the air is fresh and it feels pure. That's what I'm talking about. So moving, not just moving inside doing yoga or swimming in the pool or things like that, but I'm also talking about going outside and putting your feet on the ground and at least taking some deep breaths. And making time to do this every day. So now that I've talked a little bit about the power of movement to decrease the stress response, I want to bring another concept that is what's called heart resilience in the healing process. So believe it or not, your heart is the center. It's like the master commander of your entire being. If you have ever done any sort of yoga or know anything about traditional Indian, I don't want to say Indian, but Eastern philosophy, you know that there are 7 centers in the body. They're called chakras. And the first 3 are at the bottom, basically tailbone, your belly, and your solar plexus. And then your heart is in the middle. And then you have your throat, the space between your eyebrows and the crown of your head. Now it is said that we receive, energy from the universe through our crown and goes into our heart, and we receive energy from the earth, which is our humanity, through our feet, tailbone, belly, and solar plexus. Your heart is the center point. That is where humanity meets divinity. And why is it important to have our heart centered be balanced in the healing process? Because the heart has waves that affects your immune system. The thymus gland, which is the main gland related to the autoimmune system, is right in front of the heart. And it generates the white blood cells that are fighting the not so good cells in your body. And the heart center also has the ability to decrease the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight, flight, freeze response, and engage your parasympathetic, which is the relaxation response. And in your heart is also your purpose and your soul. So in your heart lives who you are, the essence of who you are. Now, I'm going to plant a seed. We'll talk about it more tomorrow, but for the fact that breast cancer is located in the heart center. And I really believe that when we are dealing with breast cancer, we are dealing with love and receiving and giving love. And love from the universe, love from the earth, love from the people around us, but mostly love that we have for ourselves. All the things that I've talked so far about, the example I gave you of Nikki, not eating the right food, not making time for herself, not living life balance, a life that is balanced, that is respectful of her body rhythm, has to do with self-love. So when you pay attention, breast cancer is a healing crisis that calls you to pay attention to you, to how you relate to yourself, how you relate to being kind and compassionate, understanding of yourself, how you have those clear boundaries. And boundaries doesn't mean you say no to people and you close the door. It just means that you negotiate. You don't overgive. You give to yourself and you give to another person, right? So de-stress, come back to your heart and start breathing and listen for the wisdom that lives inside your heart. Now, that mindfulness practice that I do in the morning, I actually invite healing light into my heart every morning. I relax my shoulders again. It's the same thing. You go through sitting, grounding yourself, taking some deep breaths. And then again, I'm inviting you to do this with me now. You're going to close your eyes and call on the healing energy of the universe to really lighten the space inside your chest. Often I visualize in my morning meditation, in that healing process, I will visualize what's happening in my chest. I've asked my oncologist to look at those scans. I know what's going on in there. I know where it's going on, and I send light to those tumors really that are there. And or anywhere else. If I'm sad, if I'm mad, any emotions related to what's happening, I send light into it. So I'm going to invite you now. We have about 5 minutes left, and we're going to spend no more than 1 minute to talk about this healing meditation. And I will eventually post a recording on how to, that will guide you through this process. But for now, if you can, I'm going to close my eyes for a minute and just have your hands on your heart. Hold your hands like this, right hand, left hand on top. And again, ground yourself, release the weight towards the floor, your feet on the ground. Take one breath where you inhale for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 2. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And as I talk now, just continue breathing that deep breath. And as you inhale, just feel the warmth of your hands on your heart. And let your inhale meet your hands, and let your hands rest onto your heart. Feel the warmth and soften underneath your hands, soften your heart. And imagine as the crown of your head is stretching up towards the sky, that you have a funnel on top of your head. And you open that funnel and it reaches up. The space on top of your head is reaching up, 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 up in the sky. And imagine taking light from the sun. And that light from the sun goes all the way down through the center of your brain. Relax your brain. Through the center of your throat. Relax your neck. You can one more time stretch your jaw. And go in the center of your heart. Exhale even, it helps to release the heart. And allow for that light to go inside your chest. Invite it to travel around your chest space. Imagine your heart getting warm with this sunbeam. Imagine the space between your shoulder blades and the back opening and softening. And imagine a hand, because you can't reach there, but imagine a hand in the back between your shoulder blades and breathe into that hand. So imagine 2 hands, one in the front, one in the back, and you're breathing and the space inside your chest expands and warmed up. And imagine your heart being held like a baby. Like you're holding your heart and everything that your heart has to say, all the stories of your life, all the love, the disappointment, maybe the heartbreaks, the hope, the aspirations, everything that lives inside of your heart being held by you and higher forces. And continue breathing 1 or 2 more deep breaths. And it's not the end as we end this. It's only the beginning of this relationship that you are establishing with yourself and your own heart to engage into your healing process. So I'm going to open my eyes now. And you can either keep your eyes closed again, just 1 more minute as I talk, or you can open them softly and let the light in. And just feel what it feels like to have the light meet your eyes. And feel what it feels like in your body to have soften your heart and let your heart be met by your warm hands, and imagine those hands in the back of your heart. So I'm going to pause here again. We have a couple more minutes, so we're probably going to run over for a little bit. But I want to ask Kathy if you have anything to share with us, Kathy, in terms of how it felt to you like to do this.
Oh, that was beautiful. Yes, a beautiful, beautiful exercise. Again, really, really worth spending that time doing that. And I think what you were saying about starting your day with that is powerful, because none of the stress of yesterday is with you. You've just slept, you've just cleansed your mind, and just to begin each day afresh with that kind of an exercise and just that holding your heart and letting the light in is beautiful. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Kathy. And in fact, you just said something that I actually keep saying when I record videos for this Facebook group and my Facebook page, is really to say the point of power is now. So when your mind takes off and makes you go for the worst case scenario, if you come back to your heart will tell you what it needs. And it's a moment by moment, breath by breath, that we choose life. And your heart can really guide you into making and saying yes to this moment. When you say yes to yourself, when you say yes to connecting to yourself, you say yes to who you are, you say yes to life. And that's really what this means, to say yes to life beyond breast cancer. There isn't a magical pill in going through this process. I wish there was. It's kind of a journey that we encounter, that we begin. It's like we start a journey without a map, but we do have a map, and the map is really our own heart and also our body. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about body and how our body and how to engage in listening and tuning in, and how our body tells us and guides us into the healing process. But for today, I want to recap what we talked about. We're going to wrap it up. And we talked about stress and the importance of disengaging that stress response to engage the healing response in your body. I've asked you, and I will post these slides on the Facebook group, but I've asked you to identify what your response is. Are you a fighter? Are you a flighter? Do you freeze or do you fawn? Do you try to manage and negotiate yourself through? And as you recognize that response, you can now make different choices. And it's important to make a choice. Decisions have power. And that means you choose to disengage. You either choose to take a deep breath, you choose to go for a walk, you walk away from the situation. Every day you make a plan to really slow down and release those hormones that are stuck in your body. And then you may choose to have a mindfulness practice in the morning. It could be a breathing practice, just practicing, like I said, deep breath, count them, 5, start again, 10, start again. And if it feels right to you, you put a hand on your heart and you just have a conversation with your heart. And just let it be a softening experience for you, an experience of compassion. Hear without judgment, feel without conversation, just hear. And then take notes of what's happening in your entire being. And feel free to post if you're re-listening to this. You haven't been here today live with us, but you will listening to it later. Post comments on the page. I would like to know how that's going for you. A mindfulness practice of breathing and a mindfulness practice of having the hand on your heart and listening to what's happening. And tomorrow we talk about physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health, and how to use your body as a tuning fork to really tell you what you need. The name of the game is safety, and the name of the game is embracing all of who you are. Because if your body is not involved, if you're not mind, body connected, whole, the spirit that lives in you cannot fully manifest, and the healing power of the universe can't come through. So I'm inviting you to let that happen. And I'm just wondering, Kathy, do you have any last words for us today? Thank you so much for being here and holding space with me.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. Only just the invitation, if people need to talk about this or want to talk about this, just that invitation to have that time with you, because it's powerful stuff and it's life-changing.
Yes, and I think what Kathy is referring to also is that I'm going to put a link on the Facebook group. If you want to have that one-on-one conversation with me about where you are in your process, and if you want to engage in a healing process, as in you want to make a decision and you're not quite sure what the decision is, you can click on the link and there's a calendar there where you can book some sessions, a 30-minute session with me. In the next week or so, I have freed up some time in my calendar, not a lot of spots, but some spots that you can really take advantage of. It's free, it's a no-cost session. And the goal of this session is to really focus on what you want for yourself, where you get stuck, and how to start mobilizing some of the resources that you have. So as we go through this process in the next 4 days, it's really about you engaging, making the choice. And as soon as you say yes to something, your life, something starts shifting inside of you. And sometimes we need help. Like I said, when we started today, I have been surrounded by an incredible community of people who love me very much and wanted me to heal and be here. And I want the same for you. So check out the page, give us some comments, let us know how it's going. And I am very grateful that you take the time to listen to this today. And until I see you again tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, may you be blessed. Have a good day. Thank you, Kathy.